The mountain air tasted of rain and regret. Amelia Rose Harper pressed her forehead against the cold window of the Cascade Mountain Lodge, watching storm clouds gather over the Rockies like bruises on pale skin. 3 days since New York. 3 days since the critics had shredded her art exhibition with words sharp enough to draw blood. The luxury resort stretched below her suite, all stone and timber and money she didn't have. Every breath here cost more than she could afford, but self-destruction had never looked so elegant. Thunder rolled across the valley as she made her way to the dining room. The space was nearly empty, guests having fled to their rooms. She chose a corner table where shadows could hide the evidence of her crying. Across the room sat a man who looked as haunted as she felt. Dark hair fell across his forehead. His jaw was set in a hard line that spoke of recent wounds. Designer clothes couldn't disguise the weight he carried in his shoulders, the way his fingers drummed against the table like he was fighting invisible demons. When he looked up, their eyes met for a heartbeat before both looked away. Jonathan Blake Rivers had built an empire from code and ambition, but tonight he felt like a king whose closest knight had driven a sword through his back. His business partner's attempted hostile takeover still burned in his memory. Legal papers scattered across his penthouse floor 3 states away. The mountains had seemed like the perfect place to disappear. The storm hit with nature's fury. Lightning split the sky. Thunder shook the windows. The lights flickered once, twice, then died completely. Emergency lighting bathed the dining room in amber shadows that made everything feel suspended between reality and dream. Amelia stood to get a better view of the storm's raw power. Another crack of thunder startled her backward. She stumbled directly into the path of the mysterious stranger, who had risen at the same moment. Time slowed as she fell. Strong arms caught her before she could hit the ground, pulling her against a chest that smelled of cedar and expensive cologne. For a moment they stayed frozen, her palms pressed against the soft fabric of his sweater. His arms wrapped around her waist like he'd been waiting his whole life to catch someone falling. In the flickering emergency light, their eyes met again. "I've got you," he said, his voice rough like whiskey over gravel. Something electric passed between them that had nothing to do with the lightning outside. Amelia felt her carefully constructed walls trembling. Jonathan found himself wanting to protect this beautiful stranger from whatever had put that pain in her green eyes. "Thank you," she whispered, making no move to step away from the safety of his arms. They separated slowly as hotel staff appeared with flashlights, but the connection remained taut between them like a wire humming with current. The general manager emerged to organize the chaos. "The storm has knocked out power to the entire valley. We'll be serving refreshments in the lobby lounge until power is restored." Jonathan found himself walking beside the auburn-haired woman, neither willing to break whatever spell had been cast in that moment of collision. In the lobby, candles and lanterns transformed the space into something magical, a place where normal rules didn't apply. "I'm Jonathan," he said as they settled near the massive stone fireplace. "Amelia." She accepted the wine he offered, her fingers brushing his. "Are you here alone?" "Very much alone." The honesty surprised him. "Running away from people I trusted who turned out to be liars." She studied his face in the firelight. "What kind of lies?" "The kind that steal everything you've built and call it business." Jonathan's jaw tightened. "What about you? What are you running from?" Amelia took a sip of wine, feeling it warm her from the inside. The kind of failure that makes you question if you ever had any talent at all. "I'm an artist," was an artist. "Now I'm just someone who wasted her life savings on a dream that wasn't worth the canvas it was painted on." Outside, the storm raged with increasing intensity, but inside the lodge felt like a cocoon, where 2 wounded souls had found each other in the darkness. "Show me," Jonathan said suddenly, his dark eyes intense in the firelight. "Show you what?" "Your art. I want to see what the critics were too blind to appreciate." Amelia felt her heart skip. "I don't have anything with me. I left it all behind." Jonathan leaned forward, close enough that she could see flecks of gold in his brown eyes. "Then tell me about it. Make me see it." As lightning illuminated their faces through the tall windows, Amelia began to speak. She described paintings that captured the loneliness of city lights reflected in rain puddles, portraits that revealed the secret sorrows people carried behind their smiles. With each word, she felt something inside her chest beginning to unfurl, like a flower that had been waiting for the right light. Jonathan listened with an intensity that made her feel seen for the first time in months. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "They were fools," he said finally, his voice low and fierce. "Anyone who couldn't see the beauty in what you've described doesn't deserve to call themselves a critic." The sincerity in his voice hit her like a physical blow. "You don't even know me. I know enough." His hand moved across the space between them, hovering inches from hers on the armrest. "I know someone broke your heart, and I know you're stronger than you think you are." Thunder crashed overhead, and in that moment of sound and fury, Amelia made a decision that terrified her. "What if I'm not?" she whispered. "What if I'm just someone who dreams too big and falls too hard?" Jonathan's fingers finally closed over hers, warm and steady and real. "Then we'll fall together," he said. And the promise in his voice made her believe that maybe, just maybe, falling didn't always have to mean hitting the ground. Dawn broke over the mountains like a promise whispered in gold and pink. Amelia barely noticed the beauty outside her suite windows. She'd spent the night replaying every moment with Jonathan, the way his voice had wrapped around her like velvet, the way his eyes had seen through her defenses to the broken artist underneath. Her phone buzzed with another message from her landlord, followed by 3 missed calls from her gallery representative. Reality was calling, but for the first time in months, she didn't want to answer. A soft knock interrupted her brooding. When she opened the door, Jonathan stood in the hallway holding 2 cups of coffee, his hair damp from a shower, his eyes bright despite the early hour. "Good morning," he said, offering her one of the cups. "I thought you might need this." The simple gesture hit her harder than any grand romantic display could have. When was the last time someone had thought about what she might need? "Thank you." She accepted the coffee, inhaling the rich aroma. "Did you sleep at all?" "Not much. I kept thinking about what you said last night about your paintings." He stepped into the suite without invitation, moving to the wall of windows that framed the valley below. "I have a confession to make." Amelia's stomach tightened. "Here it comes," she thought. "The part where the fairy tale crumbles." "I looked you up online," Jonathan continued, turning to face her. "Amelia Rose Harper, graduate of the Art Institute of Chicago, featured in 3 group shows before your solo exhibition." He paused. "The critics who panned your work are idiots with no vision." Relief and vulnerability warred in her chest. "You researched me." "I research everyone." His admission was matter of fact, but something flickered in his eyes. "It's a habit when you've been burned as many times as I have." She set down her coffee cup, studying his face. "What exactly do you do, Jonathan?" "Don't say consulting or finance. Those are the answers men give when they don't want to explain why they can afford to stay at places like this on a whim." For a moment, she thought he might deflect again. Instead, he moved to the window, placing his palm against the glass. "I built software that most of the world uses without knowing it. Security protocols, data encryption, things that keep people's digital lives safe." His reflection looked tired in the morning light. "I started it in my dorm room at MIT and built it into something worth more money than I know what to do with." "Someone tried to take it," Amelia said quietly. "That's why you're here, my business partner. Marcus Chen. We built the company together from nothing." Jonathan's voice went flat. "Turns out he's been working with a venture capital firm to push me out. Hostile takeover disguised as a merger. I found out 3 days ago. I'm sorry. Don't be." He turned to face her, and the rawness in his expression made her chest ache. "It taught me that trust is just another word for eventual betrayal." Amelia moved closer, drawn by the pain she recognized in him. "That's a lonely way to live," says the woman who ran away to the mountains after the art world kicked her teeth in. The observation stung because it was true. Fair point. They stood inches apart, the morning sun casting long shadows across the hardwood floor. The air between them felt charged with something neither could name. "I want to show you something," Jonathan said suddenly. "There's a trail that leads to an overlook about a mile from here. The hotel staff says it's one of the best views in Colorado. I'm not really dressed for hiking. Then we'll go slow. He reached out, his fingers grazing her wrist. Come with me, Amelia. Let me show you something beautiful. The trail wound through pine forests still dripping from last night's storm. Jonathan kept his promise, matching her pace as they climbed higher into the mountains. He told her about growing up in Boston, about a mother who'd worked 3 jobs to send him to MIT, about the late nights coding in the library while his classmates partied. Amelia found herself talking too, really talking in a way she hadn't done in years, about her father who'd wanted her to be a lawyer, about choosing art school over family approval, about the crushing loneliness of New York, where everyone was too busy chasing their own dreams to notice yours falling apart. The overlook stole her breath. The valley spread below them like a painting. All emerald forest and silver rivers and mountains that touched the sky. For a moment, neither of them spoke. This, Jonathan said quietly, this is what your art should feel like. Not what critics think you should create, but what makes you feel this alive. Amelia felt tears prick her eyes. You barely know me. Why do you care so much about my art? He turned to face her, and the intensity in his gaze made her heart stutter. Because when you talked about your paintings last night, you were the most alive person I've seen in years, and because I know what it's like to build something beautiful only to have people try to destroy it. The moment stretched between them, taut with unspoken things. Then Jonathan's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his entire body went rigid. I need to take this. He stepped away, his voice low and urgent. Amelia couldn't hear the words, but she could read his body language, the way his shoulders tensed, the way his free hand clenched into a fist. When he ended the call, his face had gone pale. What's wrong? That was my lawyer. Jonathan's voice was hollow. Marcus didn't just try to take my company. He's been feeding information to my competitors for 2 years. Half my clients are threatening to jump ship. The board is calling for an emergency meeting tomorrow in San Francisco. Jonathan, I'm so sorry. I have to leave. Today. He ran a hand through his hair, and for the first time since she'd met him, he looked truly lost. God, I just got here. I just found something that felt real. Amelia's heart cracked at the vulnerability in his voice. Then don't leave, she heard herself say, or let me come with you. He stared at her like she'd spoken a foreign language. You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. She closed the distance between them, her pulse racing. We're both running from people who broke us. Maybe we don't have to run alone anymore. Jonathan's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. Amelia, you met me yesterday. This is insane. Then let's be insane together. The kiss happened like lightning striking, sudden and electric and inevitable. His mouth was warm against hers, tasting of coffee and something darker. Something that felt like salvation and sin all at once. She melted into him, her hands fisting in his jacket as the world tilted on its axis. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Jonathan rested his forehead against hers. Come with me to San Francisco, he whispered. I know it's crazy. I know we just met, but I don't want to lose this. Whatever this is, Amelia's rational mind screamed at her to say no, to walk away, to protect what little was left of her broken heart. But when she opened her mouth, what came out was, yes, they packed in a blur. Jonathan made calls while Amelia threw her few belongings into her bag, her hands shaking with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. This was reckless. This was stupid. This was exactly the kind of impulsive decision that had landed her in trouble before. But when Jonathan's hand found hers in the car that would take them to the airport, she couldn't bring herself to regret it. The private jet surprised her, though it shouldn't have. Of course, a tech mogul had his own plane. The interior was all leather and dark wood, a space designed for working at 40,000 feet. As they climbed into the sky, leaving the mountains behind, Amelia felt like she was crossing a threshold she couldn't uncross. Jonathan worked on his laptop, his jaw tight with concentration. She watched him type furiously, watched him make call after call, watched the weight of his empire settle back onto his shoulders. Tell me about Marcus, she said when he finally closed the laptop. Jonathan leaned back in his seat, his eyes shadowed. We met freshman year at MIT. He was brilliant, charismatic, the kind of guy who could sell ice to someone living in Antarctica. I was good with code, but terrible with people. We complemented each other perfectly. What changed? Money, power, the usual corrupting influences. His laugh was bitter. Or maybe nothing changed. Maybe he was always planning this and I was too naive to see it. You're not naive. You're trusting. There's a difference. Trust is just naivety that hasn't been punished yet. The cynicism in his voice hurt to hear. Is that what you think about me? About us? Jonathan turned to look at her. Really look at her. No, God no. You're the first real thing I've felt in years. Then don't let Marcus take that from you too. He reached for her hand, lacing their fingers together. Thank you for coming with me. I know this is crazy. Crazy seems to be my specialty lately. The San Francisco skyline glittered in the twilight as they descended. Jonathan's penthouse occupied the top floor of a building in Soma, all floor-to-ceiling windows and minimalist furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. Make yourself at home, he said, loosening his tie. I need to review these documents before tomorrow's meeting. Amelia wandered through the space, taking in the expensive art on the walls, none of which stirred her the way her own paintings once had. The view of the city was breathtaking, but it felt cold. Everything here felt cold, like a showroom instead of a home. She found him an hour later in his office, surrounded by papers, his expression grim. It's worse than I thought, he said without looking up. Marcus has been systematically undermining me for months. Client meetings I was excluded from, deals that were altered without my knowledge. He's built a coalition on the board that wants me out. Can you fight it? I can try, but it's going to get ugly. He finally met her eyes. I'm sorry. This isn't exactly the romantic escape I promised you. I didn't come here for romance, Amelia said, moving to his desk. I came here because I believe in you. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Jonathan stood, rounding the desk to pull her into his arms. Stay with me tonight. Tomorrow the war starts, but tonight, just be here with me. They made love slowly, carefully, like two broken things learning to fit together. Afterward, lying in his bed with the city lights painting patterns on the ceiling, Amelia felt something shift in her chest. This was dangerous. This was going to hurt. But for the first time since New York, she felt alive. Amelia, Jonathan whispered in the darkness. What are we doing? I don't know, she answered honestly, but I don't want to stop. His arms tightened around her. Neither do I. But as she drifted toward sleep, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were both standing on the edge of a cliff, and the ground beneath them was already starting to crumble. The boardroom was a battlefield dressed in mahogany and glass. Amelia watched from the observation deck as Jonathan faced 12 board members across an obscenely long table. Even from behind the soundproof glass, she could read the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands rested flat on the table like he was holding himself down. Marcus Chen sat at the opposite end, handsome and composed in a tailored suit. He looked nothing like the villain Jonathan had described. He looked like success personified. You shouldn't be watching this, a voice said behind her. Amelia turned to find a woman in her 50s, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, holding 2 cups of coffee. I'm Victoria Reeves, General Counsel. The woman offered her one of the cups. You must be the reason Jonathan showed up today looking like he's rediscovered hope. I haven't seen that look on his face in years. I'm Amelia. I know who you are. Victoria's smile was knowing. Jonathan mentioned you. Several times. Which is remarkable considering he usually keeps his personal life locked in a vault. Through the glass, the meeting was intensifying. Jonathan stood, his body rigid with controlled fury. What's happening? Amelia asked. Marcus is presenting his case for a leadership restructure, which is corporate speak for pushing Jonathan out of his own company. Victoria's voice was clinical, but Amelia caught the edge of anger beneath. He's been planning this for months. Maybe longer. Can Jonathan stop it? That depends on whether the board values loyalty or profit. Marcus has brought in some very lucrative deals. He's made them all a lot of money. Amelia's stomach twisted. By betraying his partner. Welcome to Silicon Valley, dear. Betrayal is just another business strategy. The meeting lasted 3 hours. When the doors finally opened, Jonathan emerged looking like he'd aged a decade. His tie was loosened, his jaw clenched so tight Amelia could see the muscle jumping. "What happened?" she asked as they rode the elevator down in silence. "They voted." His voice was hollow. "Effective immediately. I'm no longer CEO. I remain on the board, but Marcus is now in charge of day-to-day operations. Jonathan, I'm so sorry." "Don't." He held up a hand. "If you tell me you're sorry one more time, I'm going to lose what little control I have left." They rode the rest of the way in silence. In the car, he stared out the window at the city he'd conquered, now watching it slip through his fingers. Back at the penthouse, Jonathan poured himself a scotch with hands that trembled slightly. 20 years, he said to the windows. 20 years of building something from nothing. And he took it in 3 hours. Amelia moved to his side. "You still own the company. You're still on the board. This isn't over, isn't it?" He turned to face her, and the devastation in his eyes made her chest ache. "I let him in. I trusted him with everything. And the whole time, he was planning this. Then fight back. Show them they made a mistake. How? He's turned half the board against me. The other half thinks I'm too emotional, too attached to the old ways. Maybe they're right. Maybe I should just take my shares and walk away." "You don't mean that, don't I?" His laugh was bitter. "What's the point of fighting for something when everyone you trusted has already decided you're the problem?" Amelia grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. "Because you're not the problem. He is, and if you walk away now, he wins everything." For a long moment, they stood there, her hands on his face, his eyes searching hers like she was a map to somewhere he'd lost. "Stay," he whispered. "Stay here with me. Not just tonight. Stay." The request should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. "Okay," she said. "I'll stay." They spent the next week in a strange limbo. Jonathan worked from home, taking meetings and phone calls while Amelia explored the city. She found herself in galleries, standing in front of paintings that used to inspire her, now feeling nothing but numbness. Her gallery representative finally stopped calling. Her landlord in New York had rented out her apartment to someone else. Her old life was disappearing piece by piece, and she wasn't sure she cared anymore. One afternoon, she returned to the penthouse to find Jonathan in his office, staring at his computer screen with an expression she couldn't read. "What's wrong?" she asked. He looked up, and something in his eyes made her stomach drop. "I need to show you something," he said. "But I need you to promise you'll let me explain." Dread pooled in her gut. "Jonathan, you're scaring me." He turned the laptop toward her. On the screen was an email thread between him and someone named Rebecca Liu, an art consultant. The subject line read, "Investment Opportunity." Amelia's hands went cold as she read. "The Harper girl is exactly what we discussed. Vulnerable, talented, and desperate. I can acquire her entire portfolio for a fraction of market value. She'll never need to know you're the buyer." Jonathan's response: "Good. Move forward with the acquisition. Keep my name out of it." The date stamp was 2 days before she'd met him at the resort. "No." The word came out as a whisper. "No, this can't be real. Amelia, let me explain. You knew who I was." Her voice was rising, hands shaking as she backed away from the desk. "Before the storm, before you caught me, you knew, yes." The admission hit like a bullet. "I knew about your show. I knew about the critics. I'd already started negotiations to buy your work." "Why?" She felt like she was drowning. "Why would you do that?" "Because your art is brilliant." He stood, moving toward her. "Because those critics were idiots, and I saw an opportunity to invest in real talent. An investment." The word tasted like poison. "I was an investment. No. God, no. That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean?" She was shouting now, tears streaming down her face. "You manipulated me. You made me think you cared about me, about my art, when this whole time you were just trying to buy it cheap from some broken artist too stupid to see she was being used." "It wasn't like that. The business deal was separate from us. What happened between us was real." "How am I supposed to believe that?" Her voice cracked. "How am I supposed to believe anything you say when you've been lying since the moment we met? I never lied to you." "You lied by omission, which is worse." She grabbed her bag, shoving her few belongings into it with shaking hands. "I actually thought you were different. I thought you saw me. The real me. Not just another opportunity to exploit. Amelia, please. He caught her wrist, his grip desperate. Don't leave. Let me make this right. How? She jerked away from him. How do you make this right? By telling me you fell in love with me between negotiating to steal my art. By promising this time you really mean it. I do love you. The words hung in the air like broken glass. I know I have no right to say that. I know I should have told you from the beginning. But what I feel for you is real. You don't love me. Amelia's voice was flat with realization. You love the idea of me, the tragic artist you could save and profit from at the same time. But you don't know me. You never did. She headed for the door, and this time he didn't try to stop her. Where will you go? He called after her. Amelia turned at the threshold, and the look she gave him could have cut stone. Anywhere but here. The streets of San Francisco blurred through her tears. She walked without direction, without purpose, just trying to put distance between herself and the man who'd made her believe in something real. Her phone buzzed. Jonathan calling. She declined it. He called again. And again. Finally, she answered. Stop calling me. I need you to know something. His voice was raw. The deal with Rebecca. I canceled it. This morning, before you came home, I told her I wouldn't be moving forward with the acquisition. Why? Because you were right. Because I realized what I was doing wasn't about business. It was about control. About trying to save something beautiful before the world destroyed it. But you don't need saving, Amelia. You never did. She leaned against a building, exhaustion washing over her. That doesn't change what you did, I know. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just asking you to believe that what happened between us was real. That in a life full of calculated moves and strategic decisions, you were the one thing I didn't plan for. The one thing I didn't want to control. I need time, she said finally. I need to figure out who I am without someone trying to rescue or exploit or fix me. Okay. He sounded defeated. Can I ask one thing? What? Don't give up on your art, please. The world needs what you create, even if I don't deserve to be part of it. She ended the call without responding. That night, Amelia checked into a cheap hotel in the Mission District. She stared at the water-stained ceiling and tried to feel something other than numb. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Victoria Reeves, Jonathan's lawyer. We should talk. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Café Luna in Valencia. Come alone. Every instinct told her to delete the message and disappear, but curiosity and something darker pulled at her. She texted back. Why should I trust anything from Jonathan's camp? The response came immediately. Because what I know could change everything, and because Marcus Chen isn't the only one who's been lying. Amelia stared at the message until her vision blurred. Tomorrow, she decided. Tomorrow she would hear what Victoria had to say. And then she would figure out how to pick up the pieces of her life and build something new from the wreckage, something that belonged to her, alone. Café Luna smelled of burnt espresso and old regrets. Amelia found Victoria Reeves in a corner booth, 2 cups of coffee already waiting. The lawyer looked different outside the corporate setting, more human somehow, with reading glasses perched on her nose and exhaustion written in the lines around her eyes. Thank you for coming, Victoria said as Amelia slid into the booth. I'm not sure why I did. Because you want answers, and because despite what Jonathan did, part of you knows there's more to this story. Victoria pushed one of the cups toward her. I'm going to tell you things that could destroy what's left of Jonathan's company. Things I probably shouldn't tell you, but I think you deserve to know the truth. Amelia's stomach tightened. What truth? Marcus Chen didn't just betray Jonathan's trust. He's been embezzling from the company for 18 months. Small amounts at first, then larger ones. He covered his tracks well, routing money through shell corporations and offshore accounts. But Jonathan found out. When? 2 months ago. Victoria leaned forward. Jonathan hired a forensic accountant to audit the books after some irregularities appeared. When the evidence came back, it was devastating. Marcus had stolen over $40 million. Amelia's hand trembled around her coffee cup. That's why Marcus tried to push him out. He knew Jonathan had discovered the embezzlement. Exactly. The hostile takeover wasn't about ambition or different visions for the company. It was about survival. If Jonathan exposed Marcus, he would go to prison. So Marcus moved first, turning the board against Jonathan by painting him as emotionally unstable and stuck in the past. Why didn't Jonathan fight back? Why didn't he expose Marcus? Victoria's expression turned grim. Because Marcus threatened to release information that would destroy someone Jonathan cares about very much. Someone who had nothing to do with any of this. The implication hung heavy in the air. Me, Amelia whispered. He threatened me. Not exactly. Victoria pulled out her phone, showing Amelia a series of photographs. They showed a woman in her late 50s leaving a clinic, her face gaunt and tired. This is Jonathan's mother, Claire. She's been in treatment for stage 4 cancer for the past year. Very few people know because Jonathan has been paying for her care privately. I don't understand what this has to do with Marcus. Marcus discovered that Claire's insurance had lapsed due to an administrative error. The treatments she's been receiving, over $2 million worth, were never properly authorized. Technically, it's insurance fraud, even though it was an honest mistake. Horror washed over Amelia. He threatened to expose her, to have her prosecuted, and to ensure she would never receive coverage again, leaving her to die without treatment. Victoria's voice was sharp with anger. So, Jonathan made a choice. He let Marcus win the boardroom battle. He accepted demotion and humiliation rather than risk his mother's life. Amelia felt like the ground had shifted beneath her. Why are you telling me this? Because you walked away thinking Jonathan was just another rich man playing games with people's lives. And because he made me promise not to tell you, which means he's willing to let you hate him if it means protecting the people he loves. Victoria met her eyes. That's who he really is, Amelia. Not perfect, not always honest about the right things, but willing to sacrifice everything for the people who matter. The art acquisition, Amelia said slowly. That was real. That was wrong. Yes, and he knows it. He canceled that deal because he realized he was doing to you what Marcus did to him, trying to take something beautiful and control it. Victoria finished her coffee. I'm not asking you to forgive him. I'm just giving you all the information so you can make an informed choice. What kind of choice? Whether to walk away and let Marcus destroy everything Jonathan built, or whether to help him fight back. How could I possibly help? Victoria smiled, and there was something almost predatory in it. Because you, my dear, are an artist. And artists see things other people miss. I have an idea, but it requires you to do something incredibly risky, something that could blow up in both your faces. Tell me. 2 hours later, Amelia stood outside Jonathan's penthouse, her hand hovering over the buzzer. Everything Victoria had told her churned in her mind. The embezzlement, the threats, the impossible choice Jonathan had made. She pressed the button. When Jonathan opened the door, he looked like he hadn't slept in days. His shirt was wrinkled, his jaw dark with stubble, his eyes hollowed out by exhaustion and grief. Amelia. Her name came out like a prayer. I didn't think I'd see you again. Victoria told me everything. His face went pale. She shouldn't have. I told her not to. I know. That's very you, apparently. Taking everyone's pain on yourself and suffering in silence. She pushed past him into the penthouse. We need to talk. They sat across from each other like adversaries at a negotiation. Jonathan's hands were clasped so tight his knuckles had gone white. Your mother, Amelia began. Victoria showed me. She had no right. She had every right. You were going to let me walk away thinking you were just another predator. You were going to lose everything because you couldn't bring yourself to tell me the truth. Some truths are too expensive to share, and some secrets eat you alive. Amelia leaned forward. Marcus is embezzling. He threatened your mother. You chose to protect her instead of fighting him. Why didn't you tell me? Because I'd already hurt you enough. Jonathan's voice cracked. I'd already manipulated you with the art deal. I wasn't going to manipulate you with sympathy, too. That's not your choice to make. Anger flared hot in her chest. I'm not some fragile thing that needs to be managed. I'm a grown woman who deserves to know what she's walking into. You're right. You're absolutely right. He stood, pacing to the windows. I spent so long building walls to keep people out that I forgot how to let anyone in, even when I wanted to. Victoria has a plan, Amelia said. To expose Marcus, to get evidence that would force the board to act. Jonathan turned sharply. No, absolutely not. Whatever she suggested, the answer is no. You haven't heard it yet. I don't need to. If it involves you getting anywhere near Marcus, then no. He's dangerous, Amelia. He's already shown what he's willing to do. Which is why we need to stop him. She stood, closing the distance between them. Victoria says, Marcus has been using company resources to fund his personal ventures. If we can get proof, documentation, anything that shows he's violating his fiduciary duty, the board will have no choice but to remove him. And how exactly do you plan to get this proof? Amelia took a breath. By getting close to him. By making him think I'm interested in partnering with him on something. He knows I'm connected to you, which means he'll want to exploit that connection. Absolutely not. Jonathan's voice went hard. I won't let you put yourself at risk like that. It's not your decision. She grabbed his hand, forcing him to look at her. This is my choice, my risk to take. And I'm taking it because someone needs to stand up to people like Marcus. Someone needs to show him that stealing and threatening and destroying people's lives has consequences. Amelia, please. I'm doing this, she said firmly. With or without your help. But I'd rather do it with you. The conflict in his eyes was painful to watch. Finally, he exhaled slowly. If we do this, we do it my way. You don't take unnecessary risks. You don't meet him alone. And the second things feel wrong, you walk away. Understood? Understood. And after this is over, if we survive it, we need to have a real conversation about what happens next. About whether you can actually trust me again. Amelia felt her heart squeeze. I don't know if I can. I know. His thumb traced patterns on the back of her hand. But I'd like the chance to try to earn it back. They spent the next 3 days preparing. Victoria helped Amelia craft a credible story about wanting to start a gallery focused on emerging tech art, something that would appeal to Marcus's ego and his desire to appear cultured. Jonathan coached her on what questions to ask, what information to look for. The night before the meeting, Amelia found Jonathan on the balcony, staring out at the city lights. Having second thoughts? She asked. About 1,000 of them. He turned to face her. I keep thinking about all the ways this could go wrong. Then think about all the ways it could go right. I'm not sure I remember how to do that anymore. Amelia moved to stand beside him, their shoulders touching. Your mother. How is she? Weak. Tired. Angry that I won't tell her what's happening with the company. His voice roughened. She worked so hard to give me opportunities she never had. And now I can't even protect the company we built together. You're protecting something more important. You're protecting her. It doesn't feel like enough. They stood in silence for a long moment, the city humming below them. When this is over, Amelia said quietly, I want to meet her. Jonathan looked at her sharply. Why? Because she raised someone who would sacrifice everything for the people he loves. Because I want to thank her for that, even if what's between us never becomes what it could have been. His hand found hers in the darkness. You're remarkable. You know that? I'm terrified. That makes 2 of us. The next morning, Amelia walked into Marcus Chen's office wearing confidence like armor. He was everything Jonathan had described, handsome and charming, with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Ms. Harper, he said, standing to shake her hand. Thank you for reaching out. I've heard so much about you. I'm sure you have. She sat across from his desk, crossing her legs. I hope Jonathan didn't poison the well too much. Marcus laughed, but there was calculation in it. Jonathan and I have had our disagreements, but business is business. I don't let personal feelings cloud professional judgment. How refreshingly pragmatic. They talked for 20 minutes about her gallery concept, about the intersection of art and technology, about Marcus's vision for expanding the company's cultural investments. He was smooth, practiced, every word designed to charm and disarm. I have to ask, Marcus said, leaning back in his chair. Why come to me instead of Jonathan? Surely he would be eager to fund any project of yours. Jonathan and I are no longer together. The lie came easily. And honestly, I'm looking for a partner who's focused on the future, not clinging to the past. Something flickered in Marcus's eyes. Interest. Possibility. That's a very mature perspective. Most people would let emotion dictate their choices. I'm not most people. No. His smile widened. I'm starting to see that. He asked her to dinner to continue the conversation. Amelia accepted, her heart pounding beneath her calm exterior. As she left his office, she texted Jonathan a single word. Connected. His response came immediately. Be careful. Please. The dinner was at an exclusive restaurant in Pacific Heights. Marcus was the perfect host, attentive and engaging, asking questions that seemed personal, but were really reconnaissance. You know, he said over dessert. Jonathan always had a weakness for damaged things. Artists, businesses on the verge of collapse, people he thought he could save. It made him a poor CEO, but an excellent target. The cruelty in his casual assessment made her stomach turn. And what's your weakness? She asked. Winning. His answer was immediate. I don't like leaving anything on the table. That sounds lonely. Loneliness is just the price of excellence. He signaled for the check. I'd like to show you something. My office has a private collection of digital art that might interest you for your gallery concept. Every instinct screamed danger, but this was the opening they needed. I'd love to see it, she said. They took his car to the company headquarters, empty and echoing after hours. His office was on the executive floor, all glass and steel and the trappings of stolen power. The collection is through here, he said, leading her to a door behind his desk. But when he opened it, there were no paintings, just a small room with a desk, a computer, and filing cabinets. Amelia's blood went cold. I have to confess something, Marcus said, his voice losing its warmth. I know why you're really here. I know Jonathan sent you to dig up dirt on me. I don't know what you're talking about. Please. He closed the door behind them. I've been watching you since you came back to the city. I know about your meeting with Victoria. I know about the plan. Fear flooded through her, but she kept her voice steady. If you know, then why bring me here? Because I wanted to see if you'd actually go through with it. I wanted to see how far Jonathan would go to get his revenge. Marcus moved closer, and she could smell expensive cologne mixed with something dangerous. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell Jonathan that you found nothing, that I'm clean, and in exchange I won't destroy what's left of his reputation by releasing evidence of his affair with an artist half his age while his company was collapsing. That's not true. Truth is flexible in the court of public opinion. His smile was cold. Or I could go another route. I could make sure your next exhibition gets the same treatment as your last one. I know a lot of critics, Amelia. A lot of gallery owners. One word from me and you'll never show your work professionally again. The threat hung in the air like poison. Why are you doing this? She asked. You've already won. You have the company. You have everything Jonathan built. Because it's not enough to win. I need him to know he lost because he was weak. Because he chose sentiment over success. Because he let people like you make him vulnerable. Amelia looked at this man, this hollow thing wearing a human suit, and felt something crystallize inside her. You're right, she said softly. Jonathan is vulnerable. He loves people even when it costs him. He sacrifices his own success to protect the people he cares about. And you see that as weakness because you've never loved anything more than your own ambition. She moved toward the desk, her heart racing but her hands steady. But here's what you don't understand, Marcus. Vulnerability isn't weakness. It's courage. And while you were so busy congratulating yourself on your brilliant manipulation, you made a mistake. What mistake? You brought me here alone. Into your private office. Through security cameras and electronic keycard readers. Every move documented and logged. She reached into her purse, pulling out her phone. And you confessed? To threatening me, to planning to destroy my career, to blackmailing Jonathan. All of it recorded and automatically uploaded to the cloud, the color drained from Marcus's face. You're bluffing. Am I? She held up the phone, showing him the recording app still running. I'm an artist, Marcus. I pay attention to details. Victoria taught me that the best way to catch a predator is to let them think they've already won. He lunged for the phone. She ducked away, moving toward the door. But he was faster, blocking her path. Give me the phone, Amelia. No. Give me the phone or I'll take it. Touch me and I'll scream. And unlike you, I actually believe the security footage will show exactly what happened. They stood frozen in a terrible standoff. Then Marcus's expression changed, calculation replacing rage. Delete it and I'll let you walk out of here. Keep it, and I'll make sure Jonathan's mother loses her medical coverage permanently. I have connections at every major insurance company in California. One call and she's blacklisted forever. The threat landed like a physical blow. Amelia's mind raced. The recording was their only evidence. Without it, Marcus would win everything. But if Jonathan's mother died because of this, he would never forgive himself. Neither would she. Fine, she said, her voice shaking. I'll delete it. She opened the phone, navigating to the file. Her finger hovered over the delete button. Do it, Marcus demanded. And then Amelia remembered what Victoria had said about loving someone. Sometimes it means letting them make their own choices, even when it scares you. She looked up at Marcus, at this man who thought cruelty was strategy. No, she said, and she pressed send instead of delete. The file uploaded to Victoria's secure server in seconds. Marcus realized too late what she'd done. He grabbed for the phone, his composure finally cracking. You just killed an innocent woman, he snarled. No. Amelia's voice was steel wrapped in silk. You did. The moment you chose to use her as a weapon. She pushed past him, her legs trembling but her spine straight. He didn't follow. Maybe he was too shocked. Maybe he was already calculating his next move. Amelia made it to the elevator before the adrenaline wore off, and the shaking started. She called Jonathan from the lobby. It's done, she said when he answered. Victoria has everything. Amelia, are you okay? You sound wrong. He knows about your mother. He threatened to blacklist her from all medical coverage if I didn't delete the recording. Her voice cracked. I'm so sorry. I didn't delete it. I sent it to Victoria instead. I thought I could save everyone, but I might have just killed the person you love most. Come home, Jonathan said, his voice rough with emotion. Just come home to me. Right now. The penthouse felt different when she arrived. Softer somehow. Jonathan was waiting by the door. And the moment she stepped inside, he pulled her into his arms. I'm sorry, she sobbed into his chest. I'm so sorry. Stop. He held her tighter. You did the right thing. The only thing. But your mother will understand. He pulled back to look at her face. She would never want me to let someone like Marcus win because I was afraid. She taught me to fight for what matters. What if I cost her everything? Then we'll deal with it. Together. He cupped her face in his hands. Amelia, listen to me. What you did tonight took more courage than anything I've ever done. You stood up to a predator when you had every reason to walk away. You chose to do the right thing even when it might cost you everything. I chose us, she whispered. I chose to trust that we could survive whatever comes next. His kiss was desperate and grateful, and full of things neither of them could name. When they finally broke apart, both were crying. Victoria is filing with the board first thing tomorrow, Jonathan said. The recording, the security footage, everything. Marcus is finished. And your mother? I'll call in every favor I have. I'll pay cash for her treatments if I have to. We'll find a way. He rested his forehead against hers, because that's what you do when you love someone. You find a way. Later, lying in his bed with the city glittering outside the windows, Amelia realized something had shifted between them. The manipulation was gone. The games were over. What was left was raw and real and terrifying. I still don't completely trust you, she admitted in the darkness. I know. But I want to. I want to believe we can build something honest from all these lies. Jonathan's arms tightened around her. We can. It won't be easy. It won't be clean. But I promise you, Amelia, everything from here forward is real. No more secrets. No more manipulation. Just us, figuring out how to be two broken people who somehow fit together. That sounds impossible. Most worthwhile things are. As she drifted toward sleep, Amelia felt something she hadn't felt in months: hope. Not the naive kind that ignores reality, but the fierce kind that looks at all the damage and broken pieces and says, we can build something beautiful from this. Tomorrow would bring consequences. Tomorrow they would face whatever Marcus tried to do. Tomorrow Jonathan's mother might pay the price for their choices. But tonight, they had each other. And somehow, that felt like enough. The boardroom felt different this time. Amelia watched from the same observation deck, but now Victoria stood beside her, both women silent as the emergency meeting commenced. Through the glass, she could see Marcus sitting rigid in his chair, his lawyer whispering urgently in his ear. Jonathan sat across from him, no longer looking defeated. He looked like someone who had already lost everything and discovered he could survive it. How long will this take? Amelia asked. Not long. Victoria's smile was grim. When you have evidence of embezzlement, fraud, and blackmail, the legal options narrow considerably. The meeting lasted exactly 43 minutes. When the doors opened, Marcus emerged flanked by security. His face was ashen, his carefully constructed persona shattered. As he passed the observation deck, his eyes found Amelia's through the glass. The look he gave her was pure hatred. She held his gaze until he was forced to look away. Jonathan found her in the hallway 5 minutes later. His expression was unreadable. He's out, Victoria announced. Effective immediately. The board voted unanimously to terminate him for cause. They're also filing criminal charges for embezzlement. The DA's office will be in touch for your statement, Amelia. And Jonathan? Amelia asked. Reinstated as CEO pending a full audit and restructure. Victoria looked between them. You two just saved a company. Try to look less traumatized about it. But Jonathan's eyes were only on Amelia. Can we talk alone? They ended up on the roof garden of the building, 50 stories above the city. The afternoon sun painted everything gold, but Amelia couldn't shake the chill in her bones. What's wrong? She asked. You won? Marcus is gone. I got a call during the meeting. Jonathan's voice was carefully controlled. From my mother's oncologist. The insurance company that Marcus threatened to blacklist her with. They found out about the fraud investigation. They're not just refusing to cover her treatment. They're suing for reimbursement of the payments they've already made. Amelia felt the ground tilt beneath her feet. How much? $2.3 million. Money I don't have liquid right now, not with all my assets tied up in company stock. He turned to face her, and the devastation in his eyes broke something in her chest. You were right to send that recording. We did the right thing, but Marcus still found a way to hurt her. There has to be something we can do. There is. Jonathan's jaw tightened. I can sell my stake in the company. It would give me enough to pay the lawsuit and keep her in treatment, but it means giving up everything I built, everything I fought for. The weight of that sacrifice hung between them like smoke. What does your mother say? I haven't told her yet. She'd tell me not to do it. She'd tell me the company is worth more than her life. His voice cracked. But she's wrong. She's everything. And if losing the company means she gets to see another year, another month, another day, then it's not even a choice. Amelia moved closer, her heart breaking for this man who kept choosing love over ambition, over and over. No matter the cost, let me help, she said. Amelia, no. You've already risked too much. I'm not talking about money. She grabbed his hand. I'm talking about my art, the paintings from my New York show. The ones the critics destroyed. They're still valuable, Jonathan. If we sell them, if we use that money toward the lawsuit, I can't let you do that. Those paintings are all you have left of your career. They're just canvas and paint. She felt tears burning behind her eyes. Your mother is a human being who deserves to live. That's worth more than any painting I could ever create. You would give up everything for someone you've never even met? No. Her voice was steady despite the tears. I would give up everything for you. Because you taught me that some things matter more than art or money or pride. You taught me that love means sacrifice. And maybe I don't completely trust you yet. Maybe we're still broken in ways we don't know how to fix. But I love you. And that means your pain is my pain. Your mother's life is worth fighting for, even if it costs me everything I have left. Jonathan pulled her into his arms, and they stood there on the roof as the sun sank toward the horizon, two people who had lost everything and found each other in the wreckage. I don't deserve you, he whispered into her hair. Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway. They spent the next week in motion. Amelia contacted her former gallery representative, who was shocked to hear from her but intrigued by the private sale opportunity. Jonathan worked with Victoria to structure the company sale and negotiate with the insurance company. On the 5th day, Amelia got a call from an unknown number. Ms. Harper? A woman's voice, weak but warm. This is Claire Rivers. Jonathan's mother. Amelia's breath caught. Mrs. Rivers, I'm so glad to hear from you. I hear you're planning to sell your paintings to help pay for my treatment. Jonathan told me what you did with Marcus. What you risked. A pause filled with emotion. I wanted to tell you myself that you shouldn't do it. Mrs. Rivers, please, let me finish. The voice was gentle but firm. I've lived a good life. A long life. I got to see my son build something extraordinary from nothing. I got to watch him become a man I'm proud of. And now I get to watch him fall in love with someone who's brave enough to stand beside him when everything falls apart. That's more than most mothers ever get. Tears streamed down Amelia's face. You can't ask me to let you die. I'm not asking you to let me die. I'm asking you to let me live on my own terms. Those paintings are your legacy, Amelia. Your proof that you existed, that you created beauty in a world that tried to break you. Don't give that up for an old woman who's already lived, more than she had any right to expect. Jonathan will never forgive himself if something happens to you. Then, help him understand that some things are worth more than survival. Help him learn that letting go isn't the same as giving up. Claire's voice softened. I'd like to meet you. Before the treatments start again, before things get harder, will you come see me? Yes, Amelia said without hesitation. Yes, I'll come. The hospice was in Marin County, a beautiful facility overlooking the bay. Claire Rivers was tiny in her bed, her body ravaged by disease, but her eyes were bright and sharp and full of the same fierce intelligence Amelia saw in Jonathan. You're even more beautiful than the pictures, Claire said, reaching for Amelia's hand. Though I suspect you don't know that about yourself yet. I'm working on it. Good. Claire's grip was surprisingly strong. Now tell me about your art. The real story, not the sanitized version my son tried to give me. So Amelia talked. About the exhibition that failed. About the critics who savaged her work. About losing herself in the aftermath and finding Jonathan in the storm. Claire listened with an intensity that reminded Amelia achingly of her son. You know what I think? Claire said when Amelia finished. I think those critics saw exactly what you intended them to see. Truth. Vulnerability. The parts of human experience we pretend don't exist. And it terrified them. So they tried to destroy it before it could expose their own carefully constructed lies. That's generous. It's accurate. Claire squeezed her hand. Don't sell your paintings, Amelia. Not for me. Not for anyone. Promise me. I can't promise that. Then promise me this. Whatever you decide, make sure it's for the right reasons. Not guilt, not obligation, but because it's what your heart truly wants. They talked for another hour before exhaustion claimed Claire. As Amelia prepared to leave, the older woman called her back. Take care of my son, Claire said. Not because he needs saving, but because he needs someone who sees him for who he really is. The good and the bad, the noble and the manipulative, all of it. I'm still figuring out if I can trust him again. Trust isn't something you find. It's something you build, brick by brick, choice by choice. Claire's eyes drifted closed. And from what Jonathan tells me, you two have already started building. Don't stop now just because it's hard. That night, Amelia and Jonathan stood in his penthouse living room, surrounded by her paintings. She'd had them shipped from New York, 13 canvases that represented 3 years of her life. "They're extraordinary," Jonathan said, moving from piece to piece. "The critics were idiots. They weren't wrong about everything." Amelia studied a portrait of a woman crying in a coffee shop, her face reflected in the window behind her. "I was painting my pain, my loneliness. I thought that was enough. But your mother helped me understand something today." "What?" "That art isn't just about expressing pain. It's about transforming it, taking something broken and making it beautiful, making it mean something." She turned to face him. "I don't want to sell these paintings, Jonathan." His expression flickered between relief and concern. "Then we'll find another way to pay the lawsuit." "I know we will, because that's what we do now. We find ways together." She moved to stand beside him in front of a canvas that showed a man and woman dancing in an empty street, their shadows longer than their bodies. "But I want to paint something new, something that isn't just about loss. I want to paint what it feels like to be broken and healing at the same time, to be scared and hopeful, to fall in love with someone who hurt you and choose to build something new anyway." Jonathan's arm came around her waist. "That sounds terrifying." "It is, but so is everything worth doing." They stood there in silence, surrounded by ghosts of her past self, and Amelia felt something shift in her chest. The fear was still there, the doubt, the knowledge that trust was fragile and love was dangerous and nothing was ever guaranteed. But underneath all that, she felt something stronger, possibility. 3 months later, Amelia's new exhibition opened in a small gallery in the Mission District. The space was nothing like the prestigious New York venue that had hosted her last show. It was gritty and raw and real, exactly like the paintings she'd created. Jonathan stood beside her as people filed in, his hand warm in hers. Claire had been strong enough to attend, wrapped in blankets and determination, her eyes bright with pride. The paintings were different from her earlier work. They still captured pain, but now there was something else woven through them. Hope, resilience, the fierce beauty of two broken, things learning to fit together. The centerpiece was a large canvas titled The Fall. It showed a woman mid-plunge, her body suspended in darkness, and a pair of arms reaching to catch her. But the remarkable thing was the expression on the woman's face. Not fear, not helplessness, but trust. The knowledge that even in falling, she was choosing to be caught. The reviews came in over the next week. Some critics praised the evolution in her work. Some dismissed it as sentimental, but Amelia found she didn't care as much as she once had, because she knew the truth now. Art wasn't about pleasing critics or chasing validation. It was about being honest enough to show the world your scars, and brave enough to call them beautiful. 6 months after that, Jonathan sold enough company stock to pay off the lawsuit and establish a trust fund for Claire's continued care. The board approved a restructure that protected against future hostile takeovers. Marcus Chen was awaiting trial on multiple counts of fraud and embezzlement. Victoria was promoted to chief legal officer and immediately started dating the head of engineering, much to everyone's surprise and her own apparent dismay, and Amelia painted. She painted the mountain resort where everything started. She painted Jonathan's hands, scarred from years of typing code. She painted Claire laughing at some private joke. She painted the boardroom where Marcus had fallen. She painted the hotel, where she'd cried over her failure and decided to keep breathing anyway. Each canvas was a step forward, a choice to transform pain into something that mattered. One evening, Jonathan found her in the converted studio space of their new apartment, smaller than his penthouse but filled with light and the smell of turpentine. "Come see something," he said, pulling her away from the canvas. He led her to the living room, where a single painting hung on the wall. Her portrait of the dancing couple, the one she'd shown him that first night surrounded by her old work. "I bought it," he said, "from your gallery. I know you said you didn't want to sell the old paintings, but I needed this one. I needed the reminder." Of what? That even in the emptiness, even in the loneliness, we were already dancing toward each other. We just didn't know it yet. He turned to face her, his eyes serious. "I love you, Amelia. Not the idea of you. Not the artist or the project or the investment. You. The woman who risks everything for people she barely knows. Who turns pain into beauty. Who chose to trust me even when I'd given you every reason not to." "I love you too," she said, and the words felt like the truest thing she'd ever painted. "Even though you're manipulative and secretive and have terrible instincts about who to trust in business, even though you're reckless and stubborn and refuse to compromise on anything that matters." They stood there grinning at each other like idiots, and Amelia realized this was it. This was the thing she'd been trying to capture in her paintings all along. Not the perfect love story, not the fairy tale ending, but the messy, complicated, absolutely real thing that happened when two people chose each other over and over, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. "Marry me," Jonathan said suddenly. Amelia laughed. "That's possibly the worst proposal in history. I'll do better next time, with a ring and a plan and some grand romantic gesture." He pulled her closer. "But right now, I just need to know if you'll spend the rest of your life with someone who will probably screw up regularly but will always choose you first." "Yes," she said without hesitation. "Yes, but only if you promise we'll keep screwing up together. Keep figuring it out as we go. Keep being honest even when the truth is ugly." "I promise." The kiss was soft and slow and full of promises neither of them would ever be able to keep perfectly. But that was okay, because perfection had never been the point. 2 years later, Amelia stood in front of a canvas in her studio, pregnant belly making it hard to reach the top corner. Jonathan walked in with tea and the exasperated expression he wore whenever he found her working too late. "The baby needs sleep even if you don't," he said, setting the tea on the table. 5 more minutes. "You said that an hour ago. This time I mean it." He came to stand behind her, arms wrapping around her waist, hands resting on her stomach where their daughter moved restlessly beneath his touch. "What are you painting?" he asked. Amelia stepped back to see the whole canvas. It showed a woman standing at a window during a storm, her reflection ghostly in the glass. But instead of looking defeated, she looked like someone waiting, like someone who knew the lightning would come, and when it did, everything would change. "The beginning," she said. "I'm painting the moment right before everything fell apart and came together at the same time." "You mean the resort. I mean my whole life." She turned in his arms. "The moment I realized I could either let failure destroy me or use it to build something new. The moment I decided to trust a stranger in a storm. The moment I chose to fall and believe someone would catch me." Jonathan's hand came up to cup her face. "I'll always catch you." "I know. But the miracle isn't that you catch me. It's that I let myself fall." Outside, San Francisco glittered in the twilight. Inside, 2 people who had been broken in different ways stood together, healing slowly, building something that looked nothing like either of them had imagined. It looked better. Claire passed, away 18 months after that night in Jonathan's penthouse, surrounded by family, holding Amelia's hand as she drifted into sleep that became something else. She'd lived long enough to see her granddaughter born, to hold the baby girl named Clara in her honor, to tell Amelia one last time that she'd chosen well. The grief was enormous and encompassing, but underneath it, there was gratitude. For the time they'd had, for the love that remained, for the way Claire had taught them both that sacrifice wasn't about giving up everything, but about knowing what mattered most. Amelia's art evolved again after Claire's death. The paintings became softer somehow, more aware of beauty's impermanence. She had a solo show at a prestigious gallery, and this time, the critics praised her vision, her emotional depth, her ability to capture the complexity of the human experience. She smiled when she read the reviews, but they mattered less than they once had. Because she'd learned the secret that took most artists a lifetime to discover. The only opinion that truly mattered was her own. The only validation worth having was the knowledge that she'd told her truth, painted her reality, transformed her, pain into something that might help someone else feel less alone. Jonathan's company continued to grow, but he was different now. Less obsessed with control, more willing to delegate, more focused on building something sustainable than something massive. They fought sometimes. They struggled with trust issues and old wounds that never fully healed. They went to therapy together and separately, and learned that love wasn't about being perfect. It was about showing up, being honest, and choosing each other even when it would be easier not to. On their 5th anniversary, Jonathan took Amelia back to the Cascade Mountain Lodge. They stood in the same dining room where they'd first collided, where lightning had struck in more ways than one. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "Coming with me to San Francisco, risking everything for a stranger?" Amelia looked at this man she'd built a life with, scarred and complicated and absolutely real. She thought about all the ways they'd broken and healed each other, all the sacrifices and betrayals and choices that had led them here. "Not even once," she said. "I do," he admitted. "Sometimes. Not us. Never us. But the way I hurt you at the beginning, the manipulation, the lies. I regret that I didn't trust you with the truth from the start. If you had, we might not be here now. We might have missed each other completely. Maybe. Or maybe we would have found our way to each other anyway. Maybe some connections are inevitable." They danced in the empty dining room while a storm gathered outside the windows, so similar to the night they'd met that it felt like the universe winking at them. Two people who had fallen and been caught and learned to fly together. Later, as they lay in bed listening to rain hammer against the windows, Jonathan's hand found hers in the darkness. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For falling. For trusting. For choosing me every day even when I give you reasons not to. For building this impossible, beautiful thing with me." Amelia squeezed his hand, feeling their daughter's bracelet slip down her wrist, the one with Clara's name engraved on it. "Thank you for catching me," she said, "and for teaching me that falling doesn't always mean hitting the ground. Sometimes it means learning to fly." They fell asleep tangled together, two scarred people who had taken their broken pieces and built something whole. Not perfect, never perfect, but real and fierce, and absolutely worth every moment of pain it had taken to get here. And in the morning, when the storm had passed and the mountains gleamed gold in the sunrise, Amelia would return to her canvas. She would paint another piece of their story, another moment of beauty salvaged from the wreckage, because that was what they did now. They took the broken things and made them beautiful. They transformed pain into art, betrayal into trust, falling into flight. They chose each other, over and over, in 1,000 small ways that added up to a lifetime. And that, Amelia thought, as she drifted into sleep, was the only story worth telling, the only art worth creating, the only life worth living. The end.